Hi, NEET aspirants. This is day 3 of our 10-day NEET series, and today we're going to study all the important diagrams from class 12th. So, first of all, let's start with the chapter Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plants. So, look at figure 1.1, which is a diagrammatic representation of LS of a flower. So, what are the labelings that are important? We have stigma, style, ovary, then we have anther, we have petal, we have filament, we have the sepal. Next, figure 1.2a shows a typical stamen in which we have anther. Then 1.2b depicts the three-dimensional cut section of an anther. And in this cut section you can see we have pollen sacs inside which we have pollen grains, and you can also see the line of dehiscence. And in both of them you can see we have the filament. Next, look at figure 1.3. This is a TS of a young anther. So, in A you can see the labelings that are connective. We have epidermis, we have endothecum, we have sporogenous tissue, we have tapetum, and we have the middle layers. Now B shows the enlarged view of one microsporangium, which shows the wall layers. Now what are the wall layers? We have epidermis, we have endothecium, we have middle layers, we have microspore mother cells, and we have tapetum. Now C depicts a mature dehisced anther in which you can clearly see we have pollen grains. Next, in figure 1.4 you can see these are the scanning electron micrographs of a few pollen grains, so you should be able to identify that these are pollen grains. Next, figure 1.5a, it shows the enlarged view of a pollen grain tetrad. You can clearly see that we have 4 of them, therefore a tetrad. In B we can see the stages of a microspore maturing into a pollen grain. So first of all we have 2 vacuoles and we have a nucleus, and before that we have only one cell. Then we can see we have asymmetric spindle formation, and then in the last stage we have a vegetative cell and a generative cell. Okay. Now figure 1.6 depicts your pollen products. Okay, you need to know what are the pollen products. Next, in figure 1.7 you can see that A depicts a dissected flower of hibiscus showing pistil. Okay, all the other parts have been removed. So we have stigma, style, and then we have the ovary and the thalamus. B shows your multicarpellary syncarpous pistil of papaver, where you can see we have the stigma and syncarpous ovary. Then C shows a multicarpellary apocarpous gynoecium of Michelia, where we have carpels. Then D shows a diagrammatic view of a typical anatropous ovule. So the important labelings are hilum, funicle, micropyle. We have the micropylar pole, then we have outer integument, then we have inner integument, then we have nucellus, and then we have the embryo sac, and then we have the chalazal pole. Next, figure 1.8. So A depicts the parts of the ovules which show a large megaspore mother cell, that is your MMC, a dyad and a tetrad of the megaspore. So you can clearly see that we have the micropylar end, and then how we have the nucellus, and then we have megaspore mother cell, which then further divides into the megaspore dyad, and then it further divides to form the megaspore tetrad. Okay. Then B, 2, 4 and 8 nucleated stage of embryo sac and a mature embryo sac. You can clearly see that in the final stage we have 2 synergids, we have egg, we have central cell, we have 2 polar nuclei, and then we have 3 antipodals. Okay. Then C depicts a diagrammatic representation of the mature embryo sac where all of these have aligned. So you can clearly see at the chalazal end we have 3 antipodals. At the micropylar end we have the filiform apparatus, we have 2 synergids, we have egg, we have the central cell, and we have 2 polar nuclei. Okay. Next, figure 1.9a depicts the self-pollinated flowers. Then B depicts the cross-pollinated flowers. Okay. And in C you can see we have the chasmogamous flower and clistogamous flower where both the parts are present. Then in figure 1.10 we can see a wind pollinated plant which shows compact inflorescence and well exposed stamens. Okay. Then figure 1.11 shows the pollination by water in Valisteria, that is A, and B is insect pollination. In A you can see that we have the female flower at the top and the stigma reaches there from the male flower, and from there they can pollinate. Next we have figure 1.12, and A depicts the pollen grains which are germinating on the stigma. Then B depicts the pollen tubes which are growing through the style. You can see they are very similar to tubes. Then in C we have the LS of pistils showing path of pollen tube growth. Okay, and we can clearly see pollen tube which is reaching from below the antipodals, polar nuclei, egg cell and the synergids. Okay, then your D shows the enlarged view of an egg apparatus showing entry of pollen tube into a synergid. Okay, so you can clearly see we have the central cell, we have the egg nucleus, then we have the plasma membrane and synergid, we have filiform apparatus, and below that we can see male gametes are entering, and we have the vegetative nucleus. Then E depicts your discharge of male gametes into a synergid and the movements of the sperms, one into the egg and the other into the central cell. Okay, you can clearly see we have the two polar nuclei and we have the two male gametes entering it. Next, look at the diagram 1.13. So A depicts your fertilized embryo sac which shows zygote and primary endosperm. Okay, and nucleus we have PEN. So in A you can see we have degenerating synergids, we have the zygote, that is obviously 2N now, and this is the primary endosperm cell, that is PEC. We have primary endosperm nucleus that has now become 3N, that is PEN, and we have the degenerating antipodal cells. Okay, in B we can see the stages in embryo development in a dicot. Okay, where you can clearly see the division of the cells and how we have a zygote, then we have a globular embryo, then we have a heart-shaped embryo, we can also see the suspensor, and then finally in mature we can see a radicle, a plumule and two cotyledons. Next, figure 1.15 shows the structure of some seeds. Okay, you can see that there are different labelings and you need to remember all of these. For example, in the first one you can see we have micropyle, we have cotyledons, and then below that you can clearly see we have the seed coat, we have the cotyledon, we have the shoot apical meristem, we have hypocotyle root axis and the root tip, and we have the endosperm. Adjacent to that you can also see we have the seed coat, endosperm, cotyledon, hypocotyle root axis and shoot apical meristem and root tip, and below this you can see we have the pericarp, we have endosperm, we have scutellum, we have coleoptile, we have plumule and radicle and coleorhiza. Now B depicts the false fruits of apple and strawberry. This is a very important MCQ. Now look, in the apple we have thalamus, we have seed, we have endocarp and we have mesocarp. And in strawberry you can clearly see we have thalamus and we have achene. Now in figure 1.14a you can clearly see the labelings are plumule, cotyledons, hypocotyle and the radicle along with the root cap. Okay, and this is a typical dicot embryo. Now B shows the LS of an embryo of grass. You can clearly see we have scutellum, we have coleoptile, we have shoot, apex, we have epiblast, radicle, root cap and coleorhiza. Now for next chapter we have human reproduction. Look at figure 2.1a, which is a diagrammatic sectional view of male pelvis showing the reproductive system. Now you need to remember all the labelings correctly. Starting off with ureter, then we have seminal vesicle, we have urinary bladder, we have vas deferens, we have the prostate, we have penis, we have urethra, we have glans penis, we have foreskin, then we have the testes and scrotum, we have bulbourethral glands, rectum, anus and the ejaculatory duct. Now figure 2.1b depicts the diagrammatic view of male reproductive system, that are the parts of testes. It is open to show the inner details. So starting off with the urinary bladder, then we have seminal vesicle, prostate, bulbourethral gland, urethra, testes, foreskin, glans penis, and then we have ureter, vas deferens, epididymis, vasa efferentia, rete testes and testicular lobules. Along with this you also need to remember the pathway and how the sperm is formed. Now in figure 2.2 you can see a diagrammatic sectional view of seminiferous tubules. This labeling comes often: interstitial cells, spermatogonia, spermatozoa and Sertoli cells. Now figure 2.3a is a diagrammatic sectional view of female pelvis showing the reproductive system. So we have the uterus, we have urinary bladder, we have pubic symphysis, we have urethra, we have clitoris, we have labia minora, labium majora, vaginal orifice, we have the anus, vagina, rectum and cervix. Now figure 2.3b depicts the diagrammatic sectional view of female reproductive system, where you can see we have ovaries, then we have fimbriae, then for fallopian tube we have three parts: isthmus, ampulla and infundibulum. Then we have the uterine fundus, we have uterine cavity, and the layers are endometrium, myometrium and perimetrium. Along with it we have cervix, cervical canal and vagina. Now figure 2.6 shows the structure of a sperm, wherein you can see we have the head, neck, middle piece which contains mitochondria and the tail. Now in head we have the plasma membrane, we have the acrosome, we also have nucleus which contains the chromosomal material. Next is figure 2.5, which shows a diagrammatic sectional view of a seminiferous tubule, and this is enlarged. Starting off we have spermatogonium, we have Sertoli cells, then we have primary spermatocyte, then we have secondary spermatocyte, then we have the spermatid and spermatozoa. In figure 2.7 you can see the diagrammatic section view of ovary, where we have blood vessels, then we have primary follicle, then we can also see we have tertiary follicle which shows the antrum, then we have the Graafian follicle, then we can see we have the secondary oocyte, and we can also see corpus luteum. Okay, now in figure 2.4 you can see a diagrammatic sectional view of a mammary gland, where you can see we have the rib, we have the muscles between the ribs, then we have the pectoralis major muscle, then we have the fat, then we have mammary lobe, mammary alveolus, mammary duct, ampulla, lactiferous duct, then we have nipple and areola. Moving on, in figure 2.9 you can clearly see a diagrammatic representation of various events during a menstrual cycle. So you need to learn the graphs: at what point does the estrogen level rise, at what point does the progesterone level rise, and when the LH and FSH surge are happening. And you also need to remember that at 14 days what is happening, and how long is the follicular phase, that is the proliferative phase, how long is the luteal phase, that is the secretory phase. Okay, next we have figure 2.11, which shows the transport of ovum, fertilization and passage of growing embryo through the fallopian tube. Okay, you also need to remember the stages, for example morula, then blastula, gastrula, blastocyst, all of these need to be remembered. Then in figure 2.8 it shows a schematic representation of A, that is spermatogenesis, and B, oogenesis. Very important question. You need to see that at puberty, spermatogonia, we have mitosis differentiation which leads to primary spermatocytes, and then we have first meiotic division which leads to secondary spermatocytes, then we have second meiotic division which leads to spermatids, then the differentiation which leads to spermatozoa. Now for oogenesis, in fetal life, you know, in for females it starts in the fetal life itself, where it starts from oogonia and it leads to mitosis differentiation leading to the formation of primary oocyte. Then first meiotic division gets completed prior to ovulation, and this is at puberty. Then first polar body is formed, then secondary oocyte is formed, then second polar body is formed, and a ovum is formed. Now for the next one we have figure 2.10, which depicts that the ovum is surrounded by a few sperms. Okay, and you also need to remember the layers. For example, here we have zona pellucida and corona radiata and the perivitelline space. Now figure 2.12 shows the human fetus within the uterus, where you can clearly see we have the placental villi, we have the umbilical cord with its vessels, we have the cavity of uterus, we have the yolk sac, and we have the embryo, and we have the plug of mucus in the cervix. Now for chapter reproductive health, figure 3.1a depicts a condom for male, figure 3.1b depicts a condom for female, then figure 3.2 depicts the copper T, figure 3.3 depicts the implants, figure 3.4 depicts your vasectomy, where the vas deferens is tied and cut, and in tubectomy we can clearly see the fallopian tubes are tied and cut. Don't get confused. Then we have the principle of inheritance and variations, and figure 4.3 depicts a diagrammatic representation of a monohybrid cross, and we are doing a cross between a tall and a dwarf plants. The F1 generation led to both being tall, and the F2 generation was 3 tall and 1 dwarf. Okay. Now, figure 4.1 depicts the 7 pairs of contrasting traits in pea plant which was studied by Mendel. All of these are very important. And what are these? We have seed shape, seed color, flower color, pod shape, pod color, flower position, and the stem height. Then, figure 4.4 depicts a Punnett square which is used to understand a typical monohybrid cross conducted by Mendel between true breeding tall plants and true breeding dwarf plants. And you need to remember what was the phenotypic ratio and the genotypic ratio in this, which was tall is to dwarf was 3:1, and for genotypic ratio it was 1:2:1. This is a very important MCQ. Now look at figure 4.5 where you can see a diagrammatic representation of a test cross, wherein the test cross was conducted, and you have to see the result, wherein either all flowers are violet or half of the flowers are violet and half of the flowers are white. Okay. Now interpretation was that unknown flower is homozygous dominant and unknown flower is heterozygous. Okay. Next we have figure 4.6 which shows the results of monohybrid cross in the plant snapdragon, where one allele is incompletely dominant over the other allele. So red and white led to the formation of color pink. Why? Because it was not completely dominant. Okay. Now in figure 4.2 we can see the steps in making a cross in pea. Okay. That how you have to do the removal of anthers, that is emasculation, and then you have to do the transfer of pollen, that is pollination, and then a successful cross is conducted. Now in figure 4.7 you can see the results of a dihybrid cross where two parents differed in two pairs of contrasting traits, that was seed color and seed shape. Now we are taking two different traits. Okay. So what was the phenotypic ratio? It was 9:3:3:1. Then we have figure 4.8 where you can see meiosis and germ cell formation in a cell with 4 chromosomes. Okay. So we have G1, G2, then M1 anaphase, then M2 anaphase, and then germ cells. Okay. Then in figure 4.9 you can see the independent assortment of chromosomes, and here you can see that we have two different possibilities. Next, in figure 4.11 we have linkage. Okay, linkage is a very important topic. So linkage results of two dihybrid crosses conducted by Morgan. Cross A shows crossing between gene Y and W. Cross B shows crossing between genes W and M. Here dominant wild type alleles are represented with plus sign in superscript. Note the strength of linkage between Y and W is higher than W and M. Okay, this is also an important cross, and many MCQs can be asked from this as well. Now figure 4.12, determination of sex by chromosomal differences in A and B. Okay, and both in humans and in Drosophila the female has a pair of XX chromosomes, that is homogametes. Homo means similar, and the male XY heterogametic composition where the males have different types of chromosomes. See, in many birds female has a pair of dissimilar chromosomes ZW and male has two similar, that is ZZ chromosomes. You need to remember these. Now in figure 4.13 these are the symbols which are used in the human pedigree and analysis, and one or two questions from pedigree can for sure be asked. 4.14 representative pedigree analysis of A, autosomal dominant trait, for example myotonic dystrophy, and B's autosomal recessive trait, for example sickle cell anemia. So they might ask you a question, or they might give you a pedigree analysis, and then they're going to ask you, is this autosomal dominant or is this autosomal recessive? So you need to practice such questions. Next, 4.16 represents a representative figure showing an individual inflicted with Down syndrome and the corresponding chromosomes of the individual. Now you need to know what are the characteristics feature that you can find in this syndrome. That is, you have the flat back of head, then you have a broad flat surface, you can find many loops on the fingertips, you can see a palm crease, you can see big and wrinkled tongue, and the child might have congenital heart disease. Now, figure 4.17 shows a diagrammatic representation of genetic disorders due to sex chromosome composition in humans. So, A shows your Klinefelter syndrome, where you have tall stature with feminized character, and in B, you have short stature and underdeveloped feminine character, which is the Turner syndrome. Now, in figure 4.15, you can see micrograph of the red blood cells and the amino acid composition of the relevant portion of beta chain of hemoglobin. A is from a normal individual, okay, and B is from an individual with sickle cell anemia. So you need to know what are the changes that are happening in it, the shape, and what is the gene that gets changed in this. Now, for the chapter of MBI, figure 5.1a shows a polynucleotide chain, okay. Then 5.2 depicts a double stranded polynucleotide chain. Now in figure 5.3 we have a DNA double helix, and you need to know that adenine bonds with thymine and guanine bonds with cytosine, okay. Then figure 5.8 shows a replicating fork. You need to remember which has a continuous formation and which has a discontinuous formation. Now figure 5.5 shows the Hershey-Chase experiment, okay, where you can see that we have three stages that are infection, blending, and centrifugation. Next we have 5.4a, where you can see a nucleosome and what are its components. Then 5.4b is the EM picture, that is the stage of beads on string. Then 5.6 was a Watson-Crick model for semi-conservative DNA replication, okay. For next, figure 5.9 shows a schematic structure of a transcription unit, which shows how a transcription happens and what are the promoter, what are the structural genes, what is the template strand, what is the coding strand, and what is the terminator. And you also need to remember their uses, okay. Now in 5.10 we have the process of transcription in bacteria, where you can see we have three stages that are initiation, elongation, and termination. On we have figure 5.11, which shows the process of transcription in eukaryotes, where you can see we have capping, then we have a cap that comes in, then we have the exon, intron, and we have the RNA splicing, we have polyadenylation, and then in figure 5.13 wherein we have translation, which is happening inside the ribosome. Then we have figure 5.14 that shows the lac operon, which is an important MCQ, because they can ask you what happens in the absence of inducer and what happens in the presence of inducer, and what does Z correspond to, what does Y correspond to, what does A correspond to, okay. Then in figure 5.12 tRNA we have the adapter molecule, and you need to know what are the codons, what are the anticodons. Then figure 5.15 shows a representative diagram of the Human Genome Project. Now figure 5.16, it's important, it shows a schematic representation of DNA fingerprinting, wherein we have few representative diagrams have been shown to contain different copy number of VNTRs. For the sake of understanding, different color schemes have been used to trace the origin of each band in the gel. The two alleles, that are the paternal and the maternal of a chromosome, also contain different copy numbers of VNTR. It is clear that the banding patterns of DNA from crime scene match with the individual B and not with A, okay. So you need to know what is the process and why are VNTRs used, okay. Now moving on, next we have the chapter that is evolution. In figure 6.1 we have the diagrammatic representation of the Miller's experiment, where he used the electrodes and he used CH4, NH3, H2O, H2 gases. We have the vacuum pump, then we have the boiling water, we have liquid water. In trap we have the water which contains organic compounds, water droplets, and we had the condenser. Now in figure 6.3 you can see the example of homologous organs in plants and animals. This is a very important question again. Next, figure 6.5 depicts the variety of beaks of finches that Darwin found in the Galapagos Island. Then we have figure 6.4, which shows white winged moth and dark winged moth, that is the melanized one on a tree trunk. So A shows it in an unpolluted area and B shows it in an polluted area. Then in figure 6.2 we have a family tree of dinosaurs and their living modern day counterpart organisms like crocodiles and birds. Next, in figure 6.6, you can see the adaptive radiation of marsupials of Australia. Okay. Next, we have figure 6.10, which is a representative evolutionary history of vertebrates through the geological periods. Okay. Next, we have figure 6.11, which shows a comparison of the skulls of the adult modern human being, baby chimpanzee, and adult chimpanzee. The skull of baby chimpanzee is more like the adult human skull than the adult chimpanzee skull. Okay. Next, in figure 6.9, we can see it is a sketch of the evolution of plant forms through the geological periods. Okay. Next, figure 6.8 shows a diagrammatic representation of the operation of natural selection on different traits. A is stabilizing, B is directional, and C is the disruptive. Next, figure 6.7 shows the convergent evolution of Australian marsupials and the placental mammals. Okay. You need to know the difference between convergent and divergent evolution. Okay, and the examples of it. Next is human health and disease. So first, very important stages in the life cycle of Plasmodium. This is very important. You need to know all the stages. Okay. For example, first of all, we have the bite, then we have the sporozoites formation, then we have its reproduction and release into the blood, then we have how they will be asexually reproduced in RBCs, then they burst, then they cause you a fever and other symptoms, and the parasites which are released will now infect the new RBCs. Then we have the sexual stage, that is the gametocytes, and then how female mosquito will take up the gametocytes with the blood meal, then how the fertilization happens, and then how through the salivary glands of these sporozoites are released. Okay. Next, figure 7.2 depicts your diagram showing inflammation in one of the lower limbs due to elephantiasis. You need to know what are the causative organisms. Then figure 7.5 shows the diagrammatic representation of the lymph nodes and the thymus along with the lymphatic vessels. Then figure 7.9 is the skeletal structure of cannabinoid molecule. Okay. 7.10 is the leaves of cannabis sativa. Then figure 7.6 depicts your replication of retrovirus. Okay. Then figure 7.7 is the chemical structure of morphine. Next is figure 7.4, which shows the structure of an antibody molecule. You need to know how many light chains and how many heavy chains are present and where is the antigen binding site. Okay. Next, figure 7.11 is the flowering branch of Dhatura. 7.8 is opium poppy. They can just give you these diagrams and you might have to identify them. Next is microbes in human welfare, wherein figure 8.1 we have bacteria. A shows the rod shaped, which are magnified 1500 times. Then B is the spherical shaped, which are magnified again 1500 times. Then C is a rod shaped bacterium which shows flagella, okay, which is magnified 50,000 times. You can clearly see we have the flagella and we have the rod shaped bacterium. Okay. Now figure 8.2 shows the virus. Now A shows a bacteriophage. Now what are the labelings? We have the head, we have the collar, we have the tail, we have plate, we have the pins, and we have the prongs. Now B shows the adenovirus, which causes the respiratory infections. Very important, adenovirus is the one which is causing respiratory infections. Now C is rod shaped tobacco mosaic virus, TMV, which is magnified, and you can clearly see that they are compact and rod shaped. Okay. Again, you need to know their identifications very nicely. Figure 8.3, A shows the colonies of bacteria which are growing in a petri dish, and B shows the fungal colony growing in a petri dish. That is, you can see this greenish is the fungal colony. Okay. Now figure 8.8 shows a typical biogas plant where you can see we have the dung and water, which then goes into the digester, which then goes into the gas holder from where gas is released, and we have the sludge. Okay. Now next, for biotechnology, we have Figure 9.1, where you can see we have the steps in formation of recombinant DNA by action of restriction endonuclease enzyme, that is EcoR1, where you can see the enzyme cuts both DNA strands at the same time. Okay, that is the vector DNA. Then we also have the foreign DNA. EcoR1 cuts the DNA between bases G and A only when the sequence GAA TTC is present in the DNA. Then what happens, we have two sticky ends, okay, one in the vector DNA and one in the foreign DNA. Now these DNA fragments will join at the sticky ends, and this finally leads to the formation of a recombinant DNA. Okay, now in figure 9.6 you can see this is a PCR, that is a polymerase chain reaction, and you know each cycle has 3 steps. You need to learn the order. What are the orders? Denaturation, primer annealing, and then is the extension of primers. Okay, so first of all, you can see this is the region that we have selected which needs to be amplified. Then we will give it some heat. Then there will be annealing done where we will put the primers. Then with the help of DNA polymerase, that is Taq polymerase plus deoxynucleotides, we will extend them. Then after 30 cycles this will be amplified. Okay, and you should also know the uses of PCR, why are they used and what are their functions. Next is figure 9.4, which is a E. coli cloning vector PBR322, again very important, which shows the restriction sites. Now you should know the numbering of these and the names of these, which are HIND3, EcoR1, BAM H1, SAL1, PVU2, PST1, CLA1, ORI, and antibiotic resistant genes, which are amphicycline resistant and tetracycline resistant. ROP codes for the proteins involved in the replication of the plasmid. You need to learn this. Now in figure 9.2 we have the diagrammatic representation of recombinant DNA technology. Again we have the foreign DNA, we have vector DNA, that is plasmid. We will use the same restriction enzyme which will cut both the foreign DNA and the vector DNA at a particular specific point. Then the ligases will join the foreign DNA to the plasmid. Then the recombinant DNA molecule is formed. Then we will have the transformation. Then we will put them in a cloning host. For example, most commonly we use E. coli. Then the cells will divide. Okay. Now for figure 9.7a, this is a simple stirred tank bioreactor, okay, where we have the acid base for pH control, we have the steam for sterilization, we have motor, we have foam breaker, we have the flat bladed impeller, we have the culture broth, and we have the sterile air. In B we have the sparge stirred tank bioreactor through which sterile air bubbles are sparged. Okay, we have the bubbles which dramatically increase the oxygen transfer area. Okay, next we have figure 10.3, which shows the maturation of proinsulin into insulin. This is simplified, okay, that how A peptide is formed. We have insulin and we have B peptide, then we have the free C peptide. Okay, next from ecology chapter we have figure 11.1, which shows the representation of age pyramids for human population. Okay, so we have 3 of them. First is post reproductive, reproductive, and pre-reproductive. So you can see how in expanding, stable, and declining they are gonna look like. Then figure 11.2 shows your population density, how immigration affects it, how mortality affects it, how natality affects it, and how immigration affects it. Okay, you need to learn their definitions and are they adding or subtracting. Okay, now figure 11.3 shows your population growth curve. So A is when responses are not limiting the growth and the plot is exponential. But in B you can see when the responses are limiting the growth, so the plot is logistic. Okay, and K is the carrying capacity. It is very important, they can ask you what is K. Now in figure 13.2 we have, this shows the species area relationship, and note that on the log scale the relationship becomes linear. Log S is equals to log C plus Z log A. Okay, and S is equals to C raised to the power Z. And on X axis we have area, on Y axis we have the species richness. Now in figure 13.1 you can see we have this representing global biodiversity. This is a proportionate number of species of major taxa of plants, invertebrates, and vertebrates. Okay, so this is all for your 12th class important diagrams, and I hope you will remember all of these, and this is gonna help you to revise. If you want to talk or if you just want to chat, want to connect and support, then you can connect us on Instagram or Telegram, and we will definitely try to reach you and help you. Thank you.